Hello, we're walking. We're walking. Wait, get in the shot, Henry. Okay, we're going for a walk in the neighborhood. No, that's not Max. That's Henry. Max is my son. Henry's my dog. So we're walking Henry, and let's see. Get a good shot. Here we go. Walking Henry. Hi, Allison. We're walking Henry right now, and we're gonna do some Periscope while we're walking through the neighborhood. Hopefully you won't be able to tell from this shot of the street what street I lived on, because I don't need anyone coming and trying to kill me. But and we'll get a nice shot of the UPS truck coming. Henry, come on. So today we're going to be talking about screenwriting, as we always do. And also we're going to be talking about trying to make sure that Henry doesn't get hit by a truck. That's also an important component to any writer's life, not letting your dog get killed. So, Henry, we good? All right. Today I want to talk to you about the general topic of writing for TV versus writing for film. Now, come on, Henry, let's go this way. No, we don't want to go over that way. Come on, let's go. Let's go this way. Come on. Henry, come on. So, okay, we've got a nice view. Got Henry. I mostly wrote for film for a long time, and I still write for film, and actually just got a film greenlight, which I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to talk about that. I mostly write for TV now, and a lot of people ask, what's the difference between writing for film and writing for television? And I'm going to tell you a story, which I like to tell stories. So here's a story that occurred to me when I got my first and only pilot produced. So I wrote a pilot for ABC Family. Come on, Henry, let's go for a walk. I wrote a pilot for ABC Family in 2012, and it got greenlit to pilot. It never went to series. That's another story for another day. But the pilot got produced, and during those 6 months of making the pilot, we had many tables where we had to punch up the pilot, and we had a lot of producing. And oh, this story is going really well. I'm getting distracted by Henry pulling me into the UPS truck. But now that the UPS truck has avoided killing the dog, we can get back to the story. Okay, so I was producing a pilot in 2012, and it was my first experience actually making a television show. And during those 6 months of making the show, we had a lot of tables with writers, and we sat down, and oh, this is Henry. Hi, nice to see you. This is Henry. Want to say hello, Henry? He's a bearded collie, and he's being very difficult because he doesn't want to go for a walk. Well, I guess he wants to go this way. And basically what I learned during... let's put it this way. When I was writing for film, and I wrote films for 10 years, 15 years, whatever, and I got a bunch of movies made, one thing I realized doing a TV show is that I never actually learned anything. I think when you're a film writer, you a lot of times... Oh, what terrible movies have I done? Hey, Duster Junk. Well, they're only terrible if you think they're terrible too. That's my defense mechanism against writing terrible comedies. But the first movie I ever wrote was called Slackers, which had Devon Sawa, Jason Segel, Jason Schwartzman, Jamie King, and that was my first script that I ever sold that I broke into the business with. And then I wrote American Pie 2. I wrote American Pie Book of Love, which was a video title. I was the first writer on Puss in Boots, which was not a terrible movie, but I didn't wind up getting credit on that movie, so that was kind of a bummer. But I've written a bunch of movies, and the thing I realized writing all these movies was that I never really learned anything. Because when you write a movie, when you're a writer for a theatrical film, you get hired, and sometimes you're not the first writer. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes you don't want the credit, that's for sure. No, you always want the credit, because that's when the residuals come rolling in. You get the money later on, and you only get that when you get the credit. So even if the movie's terrible, you still unfortunately want to put your name on it. But so I was writing all these movies, and sometimes you are the first writer, and sometimes you're not the first writer, but you're almost never the first and last writer. Let's put it that way. Sometimes, yeah, this is Henry's inner monologue. Good one. Kelly Elise May. Good one. Henry, is this what you're thinking? You're thinking about being a writer? He'd probably do a good job. So Henry is a writer. No, Henry's not the writer. Although he has been in several things. I put him in a movie. He's been in a TV show. He's been in a music video with Brie Larson. He was the star of a music video. But what I realized after about 10 years was that thanks. He is very cute. I was never the first and last writer. So sometimes I'd write a script and I'd get it from someone else who was the first writer, and I'd rewrite them, and you never meet that person. They never say, hey, this is the first writer, you're the second writer, let's get together and talk about it. And more often, I'm the first writer or I'm the middle writer and someone else is the last writer. I'm almost never the last writer, because even when you do a good job, they want to bring in a closer. A closer is the high-priced writer who's like makes the movie even better when they're in production. So, who reps me? I'm at CAA. So the point is that you never meet the person who rewrites you, and you never meet the person, the polisher. You never meet the person who you rewrite. And so because you're never meeting all these writers, in the beginning of my career, it is. I'll tell you another story about, it's true, you never meet them, and probably there'd be a lot of screaming. But the point is that you don't really interact with a lot of other writers. It's a very solitary kind of career, and in the beginning I really liked that, because when you're young and you think that you know everything, it's great to be not working with other writers, because you think other writers are going to like change your stuff, or they're going to have their ideas are going to get used and yours aren't, and it's basically good for people with big egos, which is what I had back then, and I probably still have a big ego now, but I think I can safely say that my ego is less big. But the point is that in TV, it's completely the opposite. Everyone is collaborative because you have to be, especially in comedy. I love TV. It's much better right now, Lance. Henry is totally bored. And that's the point about what you're making about workshopping them, is that even movies are doing it now, because the TV experience, especially in comedy, is that everyone sits around a table and they're all trying to make it better. And in the beginning of my career, I thought that sounded terrible. I don't want to sit around with a bunch of other writers. Your dog's not cute, or definitely not. But when I suddenly made a pilot for ABC Family in 2012, I was sitting around a table with a bunch of other writers, and all of a sudden I realized it was awesome. I liked other writers. I didn't want to just have to do it myself, because if someone else had a great idea, it was going to go in the script and it was going to make everyone look good. And I realized that being in a collaborative environment with a bunch of other writers was really fun, and it turned out a better product. And when you're on the stage and you're making a sitcom and there's a bunch of writers following you around and they're all coming up with great ideas, that's a great process. In short, what are the keys to creating a pilot? Yeah, that's true. Other writers can be great catalysts, because you guys are working together and you come up with great ideas as a team, and you kind of, the sum of the parts is better than, I don't know, whatever it is, that expression. But, and I'll get back to what makes a great pilot. It depends on the network. But, are you at the dog park? No. On Main and Pacific? No, I'm not. Are you going to try to find me? No, we're just in my neighborhood. We're trying to go around the block, but Henry likes to go backwards and forwards. He doesn't like to go in a straight line, so we've been going back and forth in the same area. No, the other David Steinberg is the more famous one. He's much older than I am. He was David Steinberg is Canadian, and he hosted The Tonight Show when Johnny Carson was not around. That's not me. We're not related. But so that's why in the Writers Guild I have to use the H. I'm David H. Steinberg, even though I actually go by Dave. So he's David Steinberg, and I'm David H. Steinberg. Anyways, the point of the story is that aside from all the other reasons to love TV, and that TV's got great writing, and the things that TV's putting out are so much better than film, especially in the comedy space, which, when's the last great comedy you saw in a film, in a theater? Probably like 10 years ago. Whereas you see great TV comedies all day long, it's because it's collaborative, and it's a great area to be writing in. And what I realized is that I liked working with other writers on a team, and so I started doing more and more TV, and I'm still doing TV. And so that's just one small point about why I think TV is so much better for writers, because you can learn from other people. And it's not just that being collaborative, it's also that when I was in those rooms there's people there that know more than me. I've never worked at Netflix. I would love to, but I haven't yet. And when you're sitting in a room with a bunch of writers who've been doing it for a long time, they tell you what you're doing wrong, and they make it so you get better at it. And you had a great conversation with David Fincher in London. Yeah, I'd love to meet David Fincher. That'd be awesome. But here's the moral of the story, is that I was a film writer for 10, 15 years, and again, caveat, I still am a film writer sometimes, but I never learned anything. I mean, maybe my writing was getting better, maybe it wasn't, but I never sat down with any other writers. The studio executives never tell you if you're doing a good job or a bad job. And in 6 months of making a TV pilot, I learned more than those 10 years, because during those 6 months, I was sitting down with other writers, and people were telling you, oh, that's not a good way of doing it, do it this way. Or they're just giving you different tools to make your writing better and to be funnier and to be more concise. And here's how you do a blow, and here's how you do a button to this scene. And I was learning all these tools, and I realized that sitting around writers who know more than me is actually a much better experience than sitting all by myself in a room and being a film writer. So, for all those reasons, that's why I've transitioned to primarily being a TV writer. And unfortunately for me and for everyone else, so everyone else figured that out too, and that so many film writers now are trying to do TV that it's super competitive. And the film business, especially for comedy, is virtually drying up. And so I know that a lot of people who are trying to break into the business, a lot of writers are always talking about like writing their big feature film spec script and trying to get that sold. And that's how I broke in 1999 when I sold Slackers. That's how you did it back in those days. But nowadays, if I was going to give one piece of advice to any writer trying to break in, especially in comedy, I would say TV. Don't try to write a feature spec script, because I love Silicon Valley, hilarious. It's a great show. That's my perfect example. What's better, Silicon Valley or the last great film comedy you saw? And the answer is, there is no such thing as the last great film comedy, because they're terrible. Yeah, I'd love to see. That's true. I would like to see more network multicam comedies on the air. NBC really has this is like their low point comedy. Pet the dog, please. Sure. Henry, are you a good boy? Henry, are you a good boy? Yeah, Henry's a really good boy. He's actually 13 years old. You couldn't tell because he looks very young. He's also been gray his whole life, so it's hard to tell that he is an old man. But yeah, so put Silicon Valley up against anything you see in a film theater. You want to go see Spy? Maybe it'll have a couple laughs. Maybe it'll be pretty good. I think Trainwreck looks pretty good. And frankly, in the theatrical space, the things that are the best are probably written by the actors or Judd Apatow's friends or whatever. So like you have people who are doing things themselves when they're not actually using outside writers. But in TV, everything is going great, and I'd put any comedy on the air right now up against any film comedy, and they're just going to blow it away. There's no comparison. So that's my one advice, is do TV, don't try to do film, because the film business is dying unless you're writing superhero movies, because they're collaborating. Yeah, they're collaborating, and even if they weren't, even if it's like Louis C.K., who isn't collaborating, he's just doing everything by himself. He writes, directs, edits. He's just funnier, and they give you more freedom, and you just make stuff, and you don't have to spend 2 years in development. Are you on a show now? No. Well, yes, I am. I was about to say no. Superhero movies are great. It's just not what I write. If I wrote those movies, then I'd be totally like, yeah, man, just like, write a Marvel movie, you'll be all set. That's true. If you are writing that movie, then you're all set. The Australian indie Little Death. Okay, I'll check that out. That's a good advice. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the pilot thing, but wait, what's the last thing I was going to say? Now I've lost my train of thought. Henry, do you remember what we were talking about? Well, I'll tell you about how to write a great pilot. The thing you have to do is have it be partially about a good hook. And like you'll see so many network shows are about like some parent. Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about what show I'm on now. Boy, I'm really scatterbrained today. Henry's really throwing me off. Okay, so the show I'm on now is called Yokai Watch, an animated series that's in Japan that's doing really well, and they're doing a US version of it, and I am the head writer and only writer with my wife. The two of us are the only writers on Yokai Watch, and we're doing the US version. It's going to be coming out this fall. I can't tell you which network because that's top secret. But, you know, I consider it to be kind of like my day job. It's not like writing something that's animated for kids is my primary goal in life, but I really love the show. It's totally fun to work on, and meanwhile I'm trying to get other things going. It's called yokai, which is a Japanese word for ghost. Yokai watch, like you're wearing a watch on your wrist. So yokai, yeah, there you go, you got it. Yokai watch. It's huge in Japan. It's coming to the US. It's like kind of like going to be like Pokemon, that only it's bigger than Pokemon ever was. So this is going to be a huge thing in America when it comes out. And we're doing the American version. We're sort of changing it a little bit, keeping it the same a lot, but just trying to make it more American. And totally love working on that show, working with a lot of great talented people. Allison's one of my friends who's doing a voice in that show. My friend Mark Risley's directing it. It's a really fun show to work on, but it is also, I am also trying to get other things going. You know, I've got 2 spec pilots going out. I've got a pitch that we're working on for network. So it's always a lot of things going on. I've probably got 5 or 6 things that are like on the cusp of happening, but nothing that's actually like a real deal yet. So can't really report any other projects at the moment. As an actress, yeah, Allison is a voice actor, if that's what we're talking about. So the other thing I was going to say about writing a pilot is you have to have a great premise, but not so much of a premise that it's all about the premise, and it has to also be about the characters. So it'd be great if you had both of those things. You really need to have amazing characters that you want to follow. If you look at Game of Thrones, definitely in a comedy, but like every time some new character walks into the screen, you're immediately like, oh, that's an interesting person. I want to see what's going on with that person. And then they kill him, and then some new person comes on, and you're like, wow, that's another interesting character. So creating great characters is really the key to TV, but for comedy, you also need a little bit of a premise so you can like see what the other episodes are going to be like. If you look at Brooklyn Nine-Nine, you've got a procedural comedy there. That's why you see so many network comedies are about kids moving in with their parents or parents moving back in with their kids. It's a really lame, tired premise, but it does kind of like, it's a little self-explanatory, so that is why a lot of people do that, which is, I think, really annoying. But the point of the story is that that's really how you make a great sitcom, is coming up with a premise that you can see 200 episodes of it and have great characters. Now I'm running out of battery. It looks like Henry wants to go home anyway, so I'm going to end this Periscope, and thank you all for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.